Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Sam Houston from Bugcrowd, and I've got here with me, we've got the VP of Operations at Bugcrowd, Jonathan Cran, and we have Wade Billings from Instructure. He's the Senior Director of Global IT Shared Services. We will be taking questions at the very end of this webinar, so through the webinar software, you can submit questions. At the very, very end of the slides, we will go through those and select them, and John and Wade will answer those. So without further ado, John can kick us off.
Thanks, Sam. Great. So we're here today just to talk about some takeaways from a bug bounty program that was run by a customer of ours, Instructure. And I've got with me Wade Billings. And Wade, would you like to do an introduction to yourself?
Sure. So my name is Wade Billings. I am the Senior Director of Global IT Shared Services for Instructure. My team is responsible for the day-to-day operations as well as security of the services that Instructure provides to our customers.
Great. And myself, I've been with Bugcrowd for about 1.5 years now. And my background's in security assessment startups, and I've taken some leadership positions with other startups in the space. And sort of have evolved with Crowd, starting out in a front-end position and then moving more toward the VP of Operations role that I currently hold. And the cool thing that I really like about Bugcrowd is there's so much interesting data that's being pushed around in the applications here at Bugcrowd. So it's really a cool place to be right now. Let's go ahead and switch to the next slide. And Wade, would you mind talking about Instructure a little bit?
Oh, I never mind talking about Instructure. Instructure, as the slide says here, we're a company that makes smart software to make people smarter. I think that's a great tagline for us. We deliver learning management software and systems to our end users, and we provide that via a software as a service, not to be redundant there. We were launched in 2011, and since that time, we've seen some pretty amazing growth in our company. We're just over 18 million contracted users. We have about 1,200 institutions utilizing our service. We have just over 500 employees, and we've grown to be a global company. So we've got offices in the United States, in the UK, in Hong Kong, as well as Australia. We've seen some, like I said, some great growth, and people tend to like our services. So it's been a great ride so far, and we're looking forward to a great future as well.
Awesome. And it's pretty tremendous growth since 2011. How big is the security team over there?
Security team right now is about 3 people.
Yeah.
We are in the process of actually formalizing that security team into an enterprise security office. But right now it's kind of a loose-knit group here within Instructure, representation for both the engineering as well as the operations side.
Got it. Yeah, we hear that so often, these small security teams where really people are outgunned in a way. Let's switch to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit about Bugcrowd. So what we're working with, and one thing that we like to say about Bugcrowd is it's an elastic security team. It's a way for our customers to be able to access some of the top security talent in the world. And we're really proud of the researchers that we have on the platform, and we work to connect those with organizations. Just to give a background on it, founded in 2012 in Australia, and then now everyone has coalesced here in San Francisco. And I think we're actually over 20 employees now. We hired some folks on Monday, and so we've got more than 20 people here in the office. As far as researchers go, we're at 15,000. We just hit that number. We're pretty proud of that number as well. And some really high quality folks on the platform. We've done over 400,000 researcher payments in 2014, and we've run over 150 programs, some of those flex programs, like we'll talk about today, and some of those ongoing programs. So if you go to bugcrowd.com/programs, you'll get a sort of overview of the ongoing programs. What we do is we provide crowd control, which is a platform for running bug bounty programs and flex bounty programs. We're going to focus today specifically on flex bounty programs and give an overview of sort of how that works and what we did with Wade in Instructure. like ultimately this boils down to we help and start and manage bug bounty programs. We try to help customers be super successful with bug bounties. Let's move on to the next slide. Cool. Wade, it's probably best if you take this and kind of talk about your annual assessment.
Sure. So because we're an online service, right, we're the only cloud-native learning management system in the market right now. And because we're an online service, we have to take security very seriously. And it was something that we realized very early on in our life that security had to become part of the product and not just a bolt-on at the end from an operational perspective. And so in 2011, we performed our first public, and I stress that word public, web application vulnerability assessment. We contracted with a legacy security research firm, and they came on site, and we engaged with them for about 2 weeks. We also took a blogger, a well-known education technology blogger, and embedded him in the process. He could actually kind of be the the man on the street type of reporter around this, because the intent was to take this report once we had it finalized and all the issues that were found remediated, and to publicly post that as we believe in openness and transparency from a security perspective. It's kind of who we are and what we do. So in 2011, we posted our first public report, and we've done so every year ever since. This year was a little bit of a shakeup of that process, which we'll get into, but that really kind of sets the stage for why Bugcrowd and Instructure created a partnership this year. It was really through the desire to shake that process up and do something a little different.
Yeah. I think this is so cool. I think it's awesome that you took a blogger and had them document the process. It permeates what we've talked about, openness and transparency. And those reports are available, correct?
Yeah, they're up on our website. They're available for every year, and you can go and download them and peruse at your convenience.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. Let's switch over to the next slide, and we can talk a little bit about sort of how this came to be. And so, I think it's probably best. Yeah, Wade.
Yeah, so again, this year we want to do something a little bit different, and the reason we want to do something different is because, as we've been doing this for the last 4 years, we've noticed that the landscape of IT security has changed and evolved. Right? It's no longer a topic that it's okay to not talk about. It's no longer a topic that is dominated by hackers who are interested in just getting badges of credibility for themselves. It has actually become a billion-dollar enterprise, as well as there are people out there who have causes that are motivating them. We look at Anonymous, we look at ISIS. There are other groups out there who are utilizing technology to further their cause, and sometimes they do that through the defacement or the breach of technology. So this year we decided to take more of an offensive approach rather than a defensive approach to our security. And serendipitously, I was reached out to by a former business colleague that I've done business with in the past at a previous firm, and he's now with Bugcrowd, and we started talking, and I quickly realized this was a partnership and a match made in heaven.
Yeah, that's right. And that was Chris, right? Chris Drainer?
Yeah, that was Chris.
Yeah, great.
And so, we were looking to do something different. We weren't quite sure what that meant, and it wasn't until we had a chance to sit down with Chris and kind of go through with what Bugcrowd was doing that it all started to come into focus for us.
Yeah.
Because I had positioned what we wanted to do this year as, again, more of an offensive, addictive type of test, not just the standard, hey, you go hire a large security firm that has a prescribed playbook, and you get 2 or 3 researchers working on your behalf for a couple of weeks. We had done that before, and we got great results out of it, but they were predictable results. And so I wanted to do something a little bit unpredictable. And again, as we were talking about this with Chris, it just sounded like it was a perfect opportunity for us to do something different and not just have 3 or 4 researchers working on behalf with a prescribed playbook, but really open it up to thousands of security researchers that Bugcrowd had crowdsourced, and they would approach it not from a centralized playbook, but they would approach it as a hacker would approach it. And that resonated with me.
Yeah. And it sounds like the economics were a big factor in that decision. You know, just the fact that you would get more for your money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have a fixed budget, right? I mean, everybody has
Yeah.
a fixed IT budget, and so, we couldn't go with an open checkbook. I had to stay within some boundaries.
Sure.
But again, as we looked at this, it just made good economic sense as well. I could go to my finance team and say, hey, we're going to get a bigger buck utilizing Bugcrowd.
That's right. Not everybody can write a check for infinity million, as you said the other day. I thought that was so funny. And we find that the flex bounty is usually where folks go when they got a fixed budget and they really want to engage the economics of the bounties. Let's skip to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit about flex. So what is flex? It's a 2-week bug bounty program. And it can run a little bit longer, a little bit less long than that, where we're flexible on the timelines. But we find that most folks, 2 weeks is about enough to get visibility over the application and get researchers connected with it. We run them privately with vetted researchers. So these are folks who have signed up at bugcrowd.com, have participated in open programs, who've shown promise and have shown talent. And we connect those folks with customers on private programs. And that allows us to put high-quality researchers in touch with organizations. And so the reward structure is interesting in this, and we can talk a little bit about that on the next slide. Actually, let's skip back. I'll finish this, and then we can dive into the reward structure. So there's a modified reward structure versus typical bug bounties. There's a bounty report that goes along with it, and we can talk a little bit about how that came to be at Canvas a little bit later as well, or with Canvas. And then you get access to the researchers in the management platform as well. So just like with the bug bounty, you can connect directly with the researchers. So let's skip to the next, and I'll talk about the reward structure. So the way we do Flex is based on the fact that we have a lot of customers who come to us and say, just like you said, Wade, we budget. And what we want to do is be able to access the economics of bug bounties, but without sort of writing that blank check for infinity million. And so what we do is we take that pool of money, and we divide it up into places and the rest of the pool. And so the top 3 places, judged on accuracy, impact, quality of write-up, those places are incentivized higher in order to incentivize the researchers to go deeper into the application and find things that you wouldn't typically find with an assessment. And then in combination with that, the rest of the pool, the rest of the 65%, is divided amongst all the other findings. So what you end up with is a way to manage dilution if there's so many findings in your application that you've overspent in a way. So with the traditional bug bounty program, this might cost you a lot of money. You don't really know up front. This is a way to fix your budget at the very beginning of it. So hopefully that's clear. 35% to the top 3 places, 65% to the rest of the pool. And if there's any dilution, there's so many findings that it needs to be diluted, it gets diluted amongst that 65%. We do our best to set expectations in terms of where that's going to end up. Yep. Cool. Let's move on. Cool. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process that we went through. And we've even evolved this a little bit since we kicked it off, the overall process, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it as well. So basically, a customer signs up, we do an onboarding, we then connect them with a pool of researchers, usually 25 to 50, depending on the particular application, depending on the skills required, depending on the technologies. So if there's mobile applications in scope or anything like that, we'll connect with specific mobile researchers. So then the program kicks off, and we work to remove duplicates, out of scope stuff, and provide a quick feedback loop to researchers. I mean, these guys are they're really good, and what they want is feedback on the submissions that they're sending in. And so the quicker we can push feedback to them, the better. We find that provides a better result for customers. And so, once we've got that process happening, we push it over to the customer, in this case, Instructure, you, Wade, to validate, assign those awards, and authorize payments. And that's actually been tweaked since we kicked this program off. So we now allowed the customer to assign those awards based on feedback that you provided as well. And that's just an example of us sort of moving quickly as a startup. The program will close out, the report will be created, report gets delivered, and then you've got access to the platform in order to resolve those bugs and have the researcher retest. And we did a slightly modified thing here, and we can talk a little bit about that. But Wade, do you have thoughts on that, and do you want to talk about that a little bit?
No, I think that outlines exactly our experience. There are some nuance there, but it's not worth going into. What I found though was that it was very effortless and frictionless for us. As I mentioned, we have a very small, loosely coupled team here, and so they've got day jobs they've got to do. They've got logs and sensors and everything else that they need to watch and configure and do their engineering job. So the thought of having them take on the additional burden of running a flex program initially was quite daunting for me, right? And that's kind of what the nice thing is with some of these more legacy companies is that they just kind of come in and say, we'll just take care of it. The problem though is they take care of it, but for that 2-week period, it's kind of a black hole for you, right? You don't know what's going on, and you don't see the telemetry, and you don't see what's happening, and so it's it's a little bit like Christmas. We are waiting for Christmas morning to come around and that report to be delivered to see what's in it.
Christmas for you and maybe not so much for others.
Exactly. But with Bugcrowd and with the Flex process, we were able to see everything that was going on. Having access to the crowd control platform and being able to go in there and see the result or the submissions that were coming in, watch your team go through and validate and certify the steps to reproduce and interact with the researchers. That was awesome, right? And being able to just kind of pull away from that, but yet still have the visibility into that, I think was brilliance, right?
And it leads well into the next slide where we kind of show submissions over time and sort of the process of how this all came together. And so you can see, like just the spike of activity there at the very beginning, and you can see activity throughout the program. So that's the blue you see there on the slide. And what that blue represents is a submission. And so each one of those is a submission. You can see in the first couple of days, there's 120, 130 submissions coming in. And then what Bugcrowd works to do is provide that feedback to researchers. And so that's the yellow there. I can't tell if it's yellow or orange. And in doing so, pushes duplicates back as quickly as possible, pushes out of scope back as quickly as possible, and then works to validate and make sure that those things you're only getting quality results. And what you can see there, and this is super interesting, I was really pleased to see this, the resolved, and this is something that's different about Instructure in how you think about security and how you work with security, and it goes to your openness and transparency. You were actively working on fixing those as soon as we got them over to you and turned that back around to us, and I thought that was just so cool.
Well, that's kind of the power of the cloud, right? I mean, we're, again, a cloud-native application, so we're able to find issues and resolve them very quickly. We're a versionless platform, so it's not like, shrink wrap software or managed host where you have to wait for all this code to be collected into a service pack and then delivered. As we were seeing issues come through and get vetted and certified and reproducible on our end, we were able then to engage engineering very quickly, and on the high priority issues, get them closed within hours and days, even sometimes hours.
Yeah, and that's really awesome. And this data then got pushed back into the report, which was cool. So let's talk a little bit about the results. I'll take this, Wade, and then I'd ask that you would sort of chime in and provide any color around this. There were 63 researchers active, and in fact, there were actually more than that active. We had 63 submitters, and the way we kind of measure that is submitters, and 27 of those were rewarded across 300 submissions. And so there was a significant number of duplicates out of that, and we see that, what we work to do is make sure that we can minimize that as much as possible. so that researchers aren't disappointed when they do submit in. But there was 10 times the number of vulnerabilities identified versus previous years. And I thought maybe, Wade, it'd be best if you talked about sort of the surprise or sort of the expectation you had around that.
Well, going into this, I really didn't have many expectations other than I knew that having more than 3 or 4 people looking at our platform for 10 days or 2 weeks, we're going to have a larger surface area, right? I mean, we know what the surface area of our application is. We know what the what the code looks like, and that's another thing I want to mention is that Canvas, our flagship product, is open source. So we were able to point the researchers at a GitHub repo and say, hey, go download the code, and you can do your static analysis and your security analysis on the code itself, which I think is a differentiator for us with many other services that don't necessarily open up their code. So we're able to actually get more of a holistic view from a security perspective by being able to turn our code over to the researchers, as well as set them up an instance of our application and have them go bang against that. So again, didn't have many expectations, but I will tell you, when we got the initial report back, I was floored. And not because I went, oh crap, look at the number. I loved the number of issues that reported, because I knew that having 60 plus people fan out across our surface area was undoubtedly going to find more. And it's not that we were any less secure or that we got more buggy in the year between report A and Bugcrowd report B. It's just that the surface area was better covered.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And I think that because of that, we're actually, I can say with some credibility now that I think we're more secure now after Bugcrowd than we were prior to that with the other companies looking at our code, because again, they only can cover so much.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and it says it there in the last bullet on this slide. Each researcher comes with their own perspective on this. Some guys are focusing on the source code. Some guys are focusing on XSS specifically. Some guys are looking for SQLi and trying to find, and everybody has their own specialty. And so I thought it was interesting. And this was different about this. I think you specifically asked us for source code analysis up front. That was part of the requirement around it. And we thought that was really cool that it was just available on GitHub and researchers could be pointed at it. And we didn't have to do anything special to coordinate that. It was just out there already. And I think that showed up in the results too. I mean, and in fact, maybe that's the best place to move forward to, is to talk about some of these results. So Wade, I don't know if you want me to take this, or I'd love to hand it to you and kind of have you talk overall a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, the nice thing that when we got the initial report back, there were no criticals found, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that kind of speaks to our culture of security here. This is software; it's an imperfect thing, so there are always going to be issues. And so the issues that were labeled as high priority were primarily centered around cross-site scripting, CSRF, and so we were able to, again, dole those out to our engineering team and have them go resolve those very quickly. So I think the mean time to repair between the time that an issue was reported through Bugcrowd and the time that we actually able to get it out into fix out into production was a week. And again, for a high vulnerability, that's pretty good. Had it been a critical, we do have an internal SLA around that we need to have something out within 48 hours. But again, we didn't have any criticals found. So there wasn't anything in there that surprised me in that there wasn't, a glaring, open hole that was found. It was a lot of, we need to go fix this. It's important that we fix this. But as far as, imminent danger, there wasn't anything there. So that was very interesting to me, as well as quite heartening to me that
that's actually really positive. Yeah. One of the things that struck me, and I just wanted to talk about one of the particular issues that was submitted, a researcher found that he could add a client IP header and bypass some restrictions that were in place on the application. And it was just the take he had on that, I think, was to go through the source first. And this is a guy who, this particular researcher has a history with Ruby on Rails, and is one of the better folks, or more well-published folks out there in the world today. And we were just really pleased to see him jump in and sort of help out with it.
In fact, there was a little bit of a celebrity sighting kind of situation around that.
Exactly.
We found out who the guy was, and you know, we're a large Ruby shop here, right? So when we found out who the guy was and let people know that, hey, we've got this guy looking at our platform, it was kind of like, well, that's pretty dang cool, right? I mean, here's a guy that's big in the Ruby community, especially around security. And you know, again, I'm not going to be able to get that type of talent anywhere else, right? I'm not going to be able to go, or I could, but it would be very specific talent. And again, I'm still not going to, I'm going to get a deep dive into Ruby, but I might not get the surface area coverage by having 60 plus researchers banging against my platform.
That's right.
So, you know, I didn't have to trade off here. That was, I think, the nice takeaway for me is I didn't have to make those trade-offs because I was able to get some deep specialty as well as some broad generality out of Bugcrowd that I wasn't able to get through other security research firms.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out, on the right-hand side here, you see a snippet of the report, which is downloadable. You see the link down there at the bottom. What was really cool about this was the quick turnaround and the fact that you were transparent about your process here. Again, you weren't, you didn't run and hide when you got a bunch of vulnerabilities. You said, okay, cool, how can we fix these? And how can we work to get this information out there? And I just thought that was really cool. So if we switch to the next slide, it'll kind of talk a little bit about that, I think, here with our key takeaways. So Wade, probably best if you take the first one, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, security is not a one and done kind of thing, right? You don't go through these annual reports and get them back and, you know, pat yourself on the back for doing great and call yourself secure. It's a step in a process, and you know, we've decided that you know, we're going to take what we've learned through the Flex program and then go ahead and engage with Bugcrowd going into the future. And we can talk a little bit about, I think on the last slide is we talk about the ongoing efforts that we have with you. But really, we utilize this opportunity, this Flex program opportunity, to inform ourselves where we need to focus, and also to reinforce the security awareness inside of Instructure. And it's also not a bad thing to be able to go out into a sales opportunity and sit down with security-minded folks, chief information security officers, and all the way down the line, and be able to present that report and talk about what we're doing from a security perspective. It helps us create a much stronger story around security than we had before.
Sure. And to follow up on that, I mean, more high-quality results by engaging with the research community versus what you were doing in the past. And we're really proud of the fact that we can help connect those researchers with organizations. Like, we've got some really high-quality folks on the platform, and it's just a pleasure to see this come together. So really, we're focused on helping making bug bounty programs accessible to organizations and really connecting those researchers with organizations. If you want more information about this, the report is available. We've got a link to the blog there that'll kind of give you the ability to download it. So if you're interested, please feel free to have a look at it. And let's jump to the last slide and talk a little bit about what's next.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, you know, we took the Flex program. We're going to build upon that with an ongoing private bug bounty program with Bugcrowd. It's up and running now. We launched it a few weeks ago. We've actually seen some great submissions from it already, and I think we're seeing the value of the crowdsourced community. And again, it just speaks to our overarching goal of creating the most secure learning and engagement platform in the world for teachers and students. And you know, lastly, again, continue with it's the best defense is a good offense, and I think that being able to work with Bugcrowd, gives us the ability to have a great offensive approach to security. You know, it's one of those things that we constantly want to know how we're doing, and you guys are definitely telling us how we're doing, because it's not we're going to wait for a year to see how we did. It is we're under constant assessment from the Bugcrowd community, and that's the way we want it to be, right? I'd much rather have your security researchers find things before others find things, and we have that type of program going on constantly for us.
Yeah, and I think there's just a lot of business value that's been created out of this, and so we're really pleased to be partnered with you and sort of moving into this next phase of it as well. I think probably the best thing to do at this point is to switch over to questions. I know we've had some come in, and so I'll hand it to Sam, who can talk a little bit about some of the questions that we have and jump in where necessary. Thanks, Wade.
Hey guys, so we had a question about for Wade. Are there any sort of specific implications for education and education tech with, you know, how you're the experience you've had at Bugcrowd, but also with security?
You know, with the education, where the information that we store on behalf of our customers is sensitive in nature. I mean, it's personally identifiable information, and so there are government regulations as well as other standards that we need to comply with from a security perspective, as well as we're going through our SOC 2 certification process right now, and so an ongoing bug bounty program and security program, you know, satisfies a number of those requirements and controls, as well as it just sets us apart, right? Our competition, to the best of my knowledge, and again, they're not talking about it, so I don't know if they are or not, but to the best of my knowledge, we're the only ones that are doing this, right? Because again, we want to show a commitment to security, and we want to show a commitment to openness. I think the more you talk about security and the more you talk about what you're doing, yeah, you run the risk of inviting some unwanted attention, but I think it's a greater risk. I mean, look at what happened with Anthem a couple of weeks ago, right? 80 million of their members got their social security numbers stolen, and they came out and said, well, we didn't encrypt them because we didn't have to. And I think that that's, in my personal opinion, kind of crazy, right? If they were being open about what they did for security, they might have had a better chance of weathering the storm. As it is, I think they're going to have a hard time at it. And so for us, we'd much rather be more open and more transparent with what we're doing for security. So it drives confidence and it drives visibility.
Let's see if that actually came through. Okay, sorry, I just had a mic problem here, Wade, and thank you for answering that. I think that was really well communicated. One question we had come in with the ongoing program. Are you seeing activity on a daily basis? How often are you seeing activity?
It seems to be pretty daily. You know, I check the queue every morning, and there's usually one or two in there. We definitely see an uptick in activity towards the evening and towards the weekends, which I think kind of speaks to how the community is populated. But yeah, we're like I said, I've been very impressed with the amount of activity so far, especially since it's a private bug bounty program, so it's not necessarily open to everybody. You know, but it's been very active, a lot more active, and again, it's great that we have a small security team here that we're getting this type of augmentation out of Bugcrowd.
Yeah, totally. Do you have other questions, Sam? Okay, cool. I think we're good at this point, Wade. Thank you very much for taking the time. We're really pleased to be able to do this with you and be able to help you communicate that message of openness and transparency. And we'll keep working on the program.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Wade. Thanks all.